what it means to be an artist or to be an art teacher or try to communicate what art does is really trying to explain the creation of existence. Not to be too grand with this subject, but that's the truth of the matter. So it's breaking it down and understanding what needs to be there in order for other things to happen. So in the Foundations of Art class, we've been going through these, what I call the order of operation for a 2D artwork. Okay? So you have all these considerations of what things need to appear as or how you want to portray them more so. So the beginning of this is deciding what you're going to make and how you're going to make it. And so you have to have some kind of pre-notion, some idea of what the result will look like and what the best means to achieving that result are. So, for example, I could choose to do a watercolor, or I could choose to do a painting, or I could choose to do a drawing. These all have different considerations. So, generally speaking, most of the stuff that is done in an art room is done on a rectangular format. And this doesn't necessarily have to be the only shape, portal, window that we are portraying. Like it could be a circle, or it could be a square, or it could be some kind of geometric shape, or what have you. It could be some amorphic shape. So what these different shapes do is they begin the dictation of how we are viewing this. This is the window. This is what my imagination, the surface area, the area that's being viewed is to look. So if we stay in the confines of the basic rectangle, there's two primary options. You can do it portrait, where the long edge is on the side, or you can do it landscape, where the long edge is on the top and the bottom. That's not to say that you couldn't have it at a diagonal or something else like that, but those are the two primary things. So already there is a ton of considerations on how this is going to be shown, what this is going to be. And so that's the first step, is figuring out what you're going to do and then how you're going to portray it. So then you have this work surface that you're going to be working on, and this is going to be what everybody views. So now you have to take all these considerations of the orientation or the shape or what this is going to look like. And it has to be considered even before this what type of media you're going to use, because that's going to indicate how you can do this. Because if you're doing this on a canvas is very hard to make an amorphic shape. It's possible. But if you're stretching a canvas over a wood frame or whatever type of frame, this is going to cause you to have to consider that. Whereas a piece of paper, you can easily cut in different directions, different shapes and whatnot. But that also, you need to consider, if you're going to be doing a painting or a watercolor, you need a heavier paper as opposed to a paper that you can draw on, because that can be relatively thin. And so these different surfaces, these different orientations of how this is going to be perceived become the first thing. So step one is figuring out the orientation. Step two is then establishing how this is to be viewed. So we do this by a horizon line, vanishing points, things like that. So generally speaking, as human beings, our eyes are on the front of our head. So if we're not laying down, if we're standing up, and more or less humans are made to stand up, so we are looking outward. And so we see a plane that is the sky and a plane that is the ground. And this changes depending on whether our head is down or our head is up, left, right, or where subject matter is. So if we are looking more down, the horizon line is going to raise. If we're looking more up, the horizon line is going to lower. And that's going to indicate what the viewable area is and where our vanishing point is. So generally speaking, if we're standing upright, looking straight out, the vanishing point is going to be on the horizon line. But if we're looking up, the vanishing point moves up because it's the center of our vision. And if there's subject matter that's causing our the direction of our vanishing point to be skewed, like if there's something in the middle of my view, I can no longer see the middle. So now I have things on the side. This becomes a 2-point perspective, and it can be divided into more perspectives depending on where that subject matter is in space. So this is a big consideration as well. Now we're figuring out literally how we're going to be seen. So you've got the orientation, you've got your horizon line, you've got your vanishing point. You're figuring out your perspective. Now we've got subject matter that we got to start adding. So is it a sky we're looking at, or is it the top of a building or a wall or something like that, or some other large format subject matter that would be the background? Where is this? Where is this space that I'm looking at? And so you start thinking about where this is. So the background is going to be indicated by the subject matter. Like if I'm talking about a tree, is the tree in a house? Is the tree outside? Where is it? So you need to think about what your subject matter, what your focus is going to be on, and then where it resides. So this becomes the background. Now when we start adding things that indicate what the background is, like maybe trees in the distance, or water, or maybe buildings, or the back wall, or maybe there's pictures back there, or a window, and then we have to do outside anyways when we're inside. So you're looking at all these different things that indicate that fulfill that what we call harmony. Like it belongs there. This is where you would see this, and we can play with that. We can manipulate that. So if we want to do something that's more like sci-fi, we could take something that's known, like a human being, and then put them on a different planet or in outer space or what have you. So we can play with that and do this, what Einstein referred to as combinatory play, taking these different ideas that don't relatively are seen or have been seen together, and augmenting them so that we can imagine, we can indulge in the what could be, what if. So with that, we start building this environment, this place, whether it is something that is known or unknown. And this is when you start considering whether or not it's going to be realistic, figurative, metaphoric, abstract, whatever have you. And so building these areas have to have this conception of, like, how am I going to portray this? And as you build that up, depending on if there are where your vanishing point, like if it's realistic or not, blah blah blah, but it helps you figure out how things are going to be portrayed. Because as we humans see things, when things get farther away, they diminish, they get smaller, they get darker, they get less detailed, the colors aren't as brilliant, yada yada yada. And as they get closer, it's the reciprocal of that. Like, we can see more details, the colors are more true, the understanding of the subject matter is in more detail, literally and figuratively. So we need to understand, like, what that distance does. If we line everything up in the same plane, then they are all understood to be the same size or at the same level. So to literally build depth, we need to show different planes of existence. We need to show dimensions going forwards and backwards. So things that are close are going to be big, detailed, colorful. Things that are in the mid-range are going to be less so, and then the ones that are off in the distance are going to be essentially just shapes without detail, without color, harder to tell, maybe just generalities, icons. So you're building this up, so you need to show both how things diminish from close to far, but also establishing these picture planes. So you need both this perspective, 1 point, 2 point, 3 point, whatever, plus, or you need to place things that indicate this without a smooth transition of depth. So that becomes your subject matter. Now once this stuff is placed, you need to start considering on colors, shades, values, things like that. And so this means that you have to pay attention to where your light source is, because ultimately, if you see it, there's got to be light reflecting off of it. So even when it's dark out and you see things, there's got to be some kind of light for us to understand it. Otherwise, it's black. It's abyss. There's nothing there. And so not having anything is nothing. And we can do this by leaving white space or black space. And so that helps us understand the fact that there are these shapes that can be indicated without having to draw it, which means value, essentially. So if you are drawing a snowscape, you're not going to be worried about the white space if you're working on a white piece of paper. You're going to be worried about all the darker areas. So this becomes the values or the colors that you show. And this can be augmented by the color of the surface that you're working on. Or if you're painting something, you can lay down a layer of one color and then build up the shapes on it, because paint has layering probabilities, which drawing typically does not. It's a different type of layering. So these all become more considerations on this. Like, I don't like to use the word creation, because we're not making something out of nothing. We're referencing. We're calling upon images, memories, thoughts, perceptions of what we know, what we've seen, and then we're augmenting what we know. Because ultimately, we can't know what we can't know. We human beings do not have the capability of making something out of nothing. We are referenced creatures. And so, getting into this, you understand where the light is coming from, which means that you're going to be having shadows, which are cast is when the subject matter gets in the way of the trajectory of the light. They're blocking it. So a shadow is usually off of the subject matter and projected onto, more times than not, the ground, but otherwise other subject matter that's in its way. So now you've got all these shadows, but there's also shading. So shading is on the subject matter, and it's the opposite of, it's the dark side of whatever the subject matter is. So if light's on this side, the dark's on this side. This is going to get darker because it does not have the exposure to light. So you have to have basic knowledge of how particle and rays work, like waves and particles, excuse me. So this gets into the physics of light, and then understanding where the light is directing, because it happens as in a ray. It doesn't change its course unless it is reflected off of something or refracted or bent, whatever. So now you've got shading on your subject matter and shadows. So we've got orientation, we've got establishment of horizon, we've got vanishing points, we've got perspective, we have layering of subject matter, diminishment of subject matter, where light sources are, how color is affected by distance and light, and then add value, the darks and the lights. So this is a lot of consideration. And then finally, you do the highlights. Where is the light hitting the most direct, what is closest to the subject matter, the light source. So where the light hits directly is going to be your shine or your highlights. And then understanding how color or value diminishes as it wraps around things or bends around things and things like that, and how those shadows, shapes, and things are affected by the light source becomes the next consideration. And once you understand all these basics, then you can really start to manipulate them because you understand how they all work together. So building this thought process, like that's what this is complete and utter exercising of thought in its grandest scheme, literally the understanding of the world around us. And so it is an order of operation. You have to understand that there is a process of this and then how it works as a result. And unless you look through this complete thought, this whole understanding, then you can never get to a higher functionality or reasoning. How can I manipulate this? How can I portray this better? How do I understand this so well that I can show this better than other people? And this is what artists throughout history have shown or worked to show. That's what a great artist has done, is they have figured out something in this process or something that exceeds the process. So you see these great these masterpieces, and unless you see and understand the process, what seeing it in life is, and this goes for most things, a picture doesn't show everything that's the actual physical work is. The brush strokes, the pencil strokes, the lines, the shapes, the things are lost in translation through the picture, photographs. And so the best way to understand things is from life. And that's where most references should be taken from. But there is constraints. Like we can all, like particularly in a school, we've got kids in a classroom. It's really hard to get them out to the ocean when you're in Midwest with like in Wisconsin, you know, and like you can't understand these things in their complexities unless you experience them firsthand. But you can learn about them. You can. This is what information does. Is information is transferable. It's understanding what people like. People can talk about it and they can show pictures of it, but it's not the complexity of reality. And so artworks cause people to think and reflect on this. And this is what the job of the teacher is then to understand all of these, the process of all this understanding and translating, educating. That's the difference between teaching and educating. Is teaching is giving information. Education is helping to realize. And this is the validity of understanding art in the classroom, is this process of the complete understanding of things. Yeah. So that's all I have to say about that. Thank you for your time and your attention.
Do more, do better.